Welcome to the Michigan Early Literacy Collaborative Module. The standard presented in this PowerPoint will focus on RI.K.1, Reading Comprehension. Reading Standards for Informational Text. This module will provide ways to prompt and support readers by asking and answering questions about key details in an informational text, to use a balanced literacy model in the classroom, to check for understanding through formative assessments, to understand the assessment cycle, to integrate this standard in reading and writing instruction. Common Core Anchor Standards here in kindergarten. This picture shows all of the anchor standards used in kindergarten. All of them have equal value and must work together. Very important that we look at that. Our reading comprehension will be in the red, which is looking at the informational text. A learning trajectory is a natural development progression in learning and development. Researchers have been identifying the learning trajectories in reading, spelling, mathematics, and even science. If teachers understand the trajectories, they can identify where students are and what their next levels are, and they can build much more effective lessons. The assessment cycle of testing and the information gathered at data reviews will drive your instruction through various things. When we look at the learning trajectories in kindergarten, the arrow that goes across the slide here shows fall, winter, and spring. How you teach this standard will depend on the time of year. You will build on these anchor standards by establishing your classroom routines and procedures. The curriculum we teach is driven by an assessment cycle. The data from the assessment drives our instruction, revises our strategies to move towards our goals and needs of children. Components of a balanced literacy program. A balanced literacy plan is most effective when children are given direct instructional support and a variety of daily reading and writing experiences that are needed in the complex process of becoming independent readers and writers. When we look at this in teaching our core curriculum, our reading instruction, our writing instruction, and working with words, again, these are all interrelated and integrated and approached in different ways. When we look at the bottom with the 120 to 150 minutes, again in kindergarten, this isn't the expectation because we are building stamina. So this is going to be substantially less. But again, looking at your children's need, building in that time frame within your lessons and daily instruction is important to create success in kindergarten. Goal setting. Intentional teachers constantly think about the goals and outcomes they want for their students and how their instructional decisions move their students toward their goals. When we look at comprehension, again, comprehension is at the top of the chart, but in order for them to be good readers and to comprehend, all of these pieces need to be put in place and have prior knowledge to them so that they can use that to be successful readers. Very important as we look at our daily activities that we teach in the classroom. Scaffolding our learning, very important to provide them opportunities to be successful. This again is looking at how we start to build connections through our learning opportunities. They can include story starters, visual organizers, modeling or acting out stories, working with a partner, or doing some things individually in learning. Again, building that background knowledge is very important. When we look at the ZPD, or the Zone of Proximal Development, here we're looking at the difference between what a learner can do without help and what he or she can do with help. So when we look at that, balancing those pieces, this is important to understand how your children and where your child is functioning in the classroom. Multiple intelligence is here. It gives you an opportunity of how your children learn and to provide other opportunities to balance those things out. Again, when we scaffold our learning in our kindergarten classroom, we're really looking at differentiating our instruction to meet the needs of children. What does a gradual release of responsibility model look like and sound like in your classroom? When we look at this, research shows that optimal learning is achieved when teachers use the gradual release of responsibility model of instruction. When we look at the teaching phrase, then we look at teaching behavior, and then we look at the learner behavior. The teaching phase is the I do and the modeling. The teaching behavior is the we do, which is that collaboration. And the learner behavior is the you do, where that gradual release and the responsibility goes to the child. When we're understanding the standard of the informational reading in kindergarten, what we need to do is pay a close attention to this unpacking of the standard. Some texts or types of text are used to convey information, so it's very important for them to understand the different text types. When someone reads a piece of text, it often generates questions, especially the pictures. And every piece of text contains a major topic or main idea and the details surrounding that topic. Defining this term with prompting and support, ask and answer questions about key details in an informational text is the target that you're looking at. Understanding the parts of the mini lesson in the workshop model. If you're not familiar with this or are not teaching the MESA units, the reader's workshop or the writer's workshop, I want to take a moment just to talk to you about the components of this lesson. First, you have your connection, which is about 1 minute, your teach, which is about 3 to 5 minutes, your active engagement, which is another 3 to 5 minutes, and your link and your share. All of these integrate the scaffolding of your learning, your zone of your proximal development. It also models that gradual release of responsibility as far as you being the teacher and the learners assuming those responsibilities. To teach this lesson, I chose the mentor text BATS. This is a National Geographic book available in Scholastic. You may have something else in your reading library that you can use. Another important component is text features. If you're using the MESA units, this is part of your Unit 3, which is your label and list, which is in your writing units. But then also Unit 5 and the Reader's Workshop also has text features and really focuses on the informational text there too. When teaching your connection, you want to begin with a specific reminder of previous learning. So you're building that schema and bringing that to the forefront. State your learning target. Readers, we can ask and answer questions about key details in a nonfiction or informational text. Your connection. Readers, we have been learning about these new text features in our nonfiction or informational text. When reading a nonfiction book or informational book, the pictures have made us curious, and when we're curious, we ask questions. You can review the text features again to pay close attention or make those connections to your children. Today, readers, I want you to listen to a text and be prepared to answer some questions. Here's your teach, usually lasting 3 to 5 minutes. Here the teacher models or explains the precise teaching point by using a familiar text as you explain or show in examples. This is the I do part of the gradual release. Teach. Readers, today I will be reading an informational text about bats. As I'm reading, I'll be noticing text features and modeling my thinking out loud by asking questions as I look at the pictures. Teaching point. Our focus today will be learning on some new information about this animal. We call them facts. When we ask questions while we're reading, it helps us to learn and organize information. We need to remember that our nonfiction or informational text features are here to think about questions to ask ourselves to. Look at these question words and the anchor chart and text features before proceeding. It's very important that they understand what a nonfiction book consists of. And then again, if you've used your question words to help them think, here's another good organizer or anchor chart here, having the picture and having just a word to make those connections of the questions they might want to ask or curious about. Students will need to watch and listen to learn. The questions we need to ask are different when we're working in an informational text, and this is how we ask and answer questions about key details in a nonfiction or informational text. Active engagement. Here the readers are trying the teaching point through guided practice. Now it's your turn to try. Restate the teaching point here. This is the you do. You're going to model your thinking by asking questions as you read and notice the text features. Review the before and the during on the chart. This is really good for them to look at when you're reading an informational text to be building that prior knowledge of and what they should be thinking about. The focus will be on their thinking and the connections made while you're reading. Provide wait time, give them opportunity to think. Then turn to their partner to pair and share 2 facts they've learned and 1 thing they're still curious about. Your setup for time should be about 30 seconds. It could be more or less depending on your group. And again, say, readers, you've just shared key details about this text by learning to ask and answer questions. You've restated your teaching point again and giving them an opportunity to transfer that learning. Your link. Here we set up children to transfer that teaching point to their independent reading and writing. So today, readers, we read an informational text or non-fictional text about bats. We noticed the new text features and used new questions to connect key details about the bats. Here's your share. Let's organize our learning in answering these questions to see what we learned about bats. You can put up this poster on a board. You can project it on a whiteboard, however you like to do that. But you're going to use some words to elicit the conversations. Bats can what? Bats have what? And bats are what? Again, we're looking at those key words to drive that information and to make those connections for them to share. You may want to use a management system for sharing that works for your classroom. Not everyone will get to share, and this is part of that you do, and also measuring what they've learned. You're going to end the lesson by naming the teaching point again. I can ask and answer questions about important details in informational books. Your formative assessment piece might take a little bit longer because I've included that chart for you to fill in. So part of your question and answer, part of your naming and noticing is going to be also what you've put on that chart. So notice and name the expectation, looking for that understanding. You're going to teach the skill with prompting and support, model your thinking out loud, and guide that process. Again, if you create that chart, list some of those answers that the children answered on the chart. This helps them again to make those connections from the informational text features as well. And you are sharing a fact, which is completely different when you're looking at the informational stories. Your exit ticket will be your link and share, will be for them to share a fact that they've made while reading and listening to the story. But then also, again, one of the things that I really recommend that I use to kind of scaffold my learning is to do that quick check using their fingers. 1, I don't get it, I need help. 2, I kind of get it, I need a little bit of help. 3, I've got it. 4, I've got it, and I can teach a friend. Once you've given this and looked at this, go back and revise and revisit as you're needed. You may need to adjust your expectations for the time of year you're teaching the standard, but then again, it's a quick little mini formative assessment. Who has it, who doesn't? You might want to change that group, or you might want to do a small strategy group, pull those children and revisit this lesson again and ask those questions one-on-one. Your balanced assessment here is important for you to understand how this assessments or your assessments in your district drive your instruction and look at how children are making gains throughout the year. Your formative assessments are going to be used continuously through the standard. Your interim assessments are your benchmarks looking at where you have for your report card within your district. And your summative assessments are the ones you show your AYP or adequately yearly progress with the beginning, middle, and end of the year. Your standards here, your anchor standards to this unit and to this lesson that I've introduced to you, you want to try to find ways to integrate these standards in your daily activities. Multiple opportunities and exposure in our content standards promote success across the curriculum. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this module on comprehension in kindergarten using informational text. My hope is that you'll take this information and make this your own and apply these ideas to make your students become more successful readers.